So welcome to our next session, where we are going to explore the Turning the Tide project in a bit more depth by looking at the issues that each of our partner cities are investigating, exploring through the practice of the socially engaged artists. So I'm going to call up the partners who are going to present to come onto the stage here with me just now. Where are we all? We've got Ivona Price representing Intercult from Stockholm. We've got Sophia Thickelin. No, that's not the correct pronunciation. She'll tell me how to pronounce it. I do my best. From Evoia in Greece. We have Maya Marowski from the Urban Cultural Institute in Gdansk in Poland. And we've got Bernd Herger from the Wiener Bildungsakademie in Vienna. Is he here? Is he in the room? He's upstairs, but he'll come down for his bit. Okay, thanks ever so much, everybody, for joining me on the stage. And first, to present for Stockholm in Sweden, we have Ivona Price.
Yeah. Yes, so the climate challenges of our cities. This is the basics for our project, and we investigated the challenges before starting, when we gathered for writing the application, we created the project, the ideas, we started, of course, with the challenges. And in Stockholm, there are many challenges which are of the same kind as everywhere, but we will concentrate this time on drinking water and urbanization. Let me see, I think that those should be the videos, but we don't have the videos here, okay. So this is the Stockholm is built on archipelago on 22,000 islands, stretching from the Lake Mälaren to the Baltic Sea. The city was founded in the mid-13th century for defense and trade. And it has always been a center in Sweden for political power, located initially on the central island of Stockholm and its neighboring islands. I'm not showing the pictures. I think that you can study the archipelago on the internet, but today I can say that you really cannot see with your bare eyes that Stockholm is placed on the islands, even if the water is everywhere. Mälaren, the Lake Mälaren, is the freshwater lake system and the main source of drinking water in the region. And its connection to the Baltic Sea allows ocean-going ships to dock in several central areas of the city. If you will come to Stockholm, you will see all those big cruisers parking in the entire central Stockholm. About 2 million people currently rely on Mälaren for water, and the number is likely to increase as the population of the entire Stockholm region is expected to grow from 2.4 to 3 million by 2040. Well, the problem is that climate change is affecting the local climate of Stockholm in the following ways. It's increased yearly rainfall, it's prolonged drought periods, it's rising sea levels and floods, warmer, drier summers, shorter, wetter winters, and increased soil erosion. Stockholm is currently experiencing collective short-term risks in the access to drinking water, and these changes may contribute to increased unreliability of fresh water and drinking water access in the future. Um, yeah, as the drinking water is taken from the lake, which is a huge lake on one side of the city, it's being contaminated by the salt water from the Baltic Sea. And of course, the water is also contaminated by pollution coming from agriculture and from the pollution coming from our homes. Saltwater contamination from rising sea levels in the Baltic Sea is, well, today not a big threat, but it will be a threat in the coming years. And scientists predict that in year 2100, the flooding will be as high as will be too high, will be high to be dangerous for Stockholm. So we will not have the water, drinking water, clean drinking water in the Stockholm by the year 2100. Excess rainfall in combination with urbanization will increase the risk of flooding, as many important areas in Stockholm sit just above sea level, especially in the old city. You can see it with your eyes when you come here. Stockholm is expanding rapidly in the form of new housing, businesses and industries. This leads to a greater percentage of ground being covered by tarmac, concrete and similar. Many waterfronts are fortified in similar ways, and you can see it in many cities in Europe. This makes the land less capable of absorbing excess water, leading to increased, faster drainage into waterways and increased flooding risk. And then there is also this risk of brownification and pollution from the agriculture. What we have in the middle of Stockholm is the area which is called Slussen and Stadsgården. And this area is a focus of our project. This area is built around a large floodgate and the neighboring harbor. The history is that the gates were built for 400 years ago, renewed lately, and there is a new gate planned for the coming years to regulate the water between the Lake Mälaren and the Baltic Sea. Yeah, so this is the very busy area being under the reconstruction just now. This was the port area before, now covered with concrete, and the bus station and the metro station. And this is, basically speaking, an area which you are passing by on your way somewhere else. What you see in the background is the old city. There was water in front of the buildings. Now the reconstruction is covering that part of the water. There will be a library and other buildings, totally new, which shall somehow be more useful for the public, for us people who live there, and than the area has been before. So the area is undergoing a total transition of this environment, the urban environment. Our artists, well, of course, there are also some cultural institutions. It's like always, when there are empty buildings, artists are moving in, and that was also possible in Stockholm. So we have a huge old ferry terminal, which is now being used by cultural organizations. They have concerts, they have exhibitions. And for now, today, there was an opening of a big art exhibition, a supermarket, for example. We have also a museum or a building for photography. We have an old elevator, so and a beautiful view over Stockholm. So this is a great culture area, even if you cannot really walk through that place. There is only one very narrow path where people can go and reach the buildings. So this is how the future of Slussen will look like. The totally reconstructed area with new buildings, with new public spaces, hopefully also with uh, well, the cultural institutions kept where they are today and not taken over by housing or other kind of new places. Even if I can see on the picture now that there is housing planned precisely where the cultural institutions are today. So we will see how it will be. And we will be working with that area with our artists. We have already had an open call, so we have 3 artists, local, 2 dancers, 2 choreographers, and 1 artist working with glass. They will create interventions on the subject of climate change, and that will continue during the coming years with 8 more people. So this is Stockholm with this big floodgate, with the problem of salt water contaminating the sweet water, and the future, which is contested by that construction. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ivona. That was superb. And our next partner is from Greece. Sophia, you're going to tell us. Introduce yourself so I don't have to pronounce your name.
Yeah. That's a PDF. So full screen mode.
Thank you. Hello. So my name is Sofia Theakouli. Representing ARTIT from Greece, and I'm going to be talking about Evia and what we're currently working on, what we're planning. So why we've chosen Evia is the first question. So Evia is Greece's second largest island. You might have seen in the news over the last 4 years, there's been lots of natural disasters, from wildfires to floods and storms. And obviously the wildfires have not helped with the huge amount of water that has followed. So we've had over 15% of the area been burned down, and then the water, when the storms came, it reached a meter. So you can imagine the damage that has caused. It was in the news outlets, everybody talking about biblical disaster over and over again over the years, with people even losing their lives, animals, obviously, roads and infrastructure being damaged. So yes, affected areas, several areas were affected. There's lots of small towns and villages. The capital, Halkida, Psachna, Politika, Vasilika, and so many more areas. And more specifically, you see there's been 4 major storms in the summer of 2020, October 2021, and 2 in September 2023. So there were mudslides, villages were basically buried in mud. Yeah, bridges collapsed, main roads were damaged, and people were trapped in their houses. They couldn't even be let out by rescue teams who couldn't approach because of the floods and the amount of the disaster. So more specifically, challenges, but most definitely not a non-conclusive list, but we're starting with agricultural damage. The a huge majority of the population is, we're talking about farmers and local producers who produce and have livestock, and that's how they make a living. And obviously, their lives have been severely destroyed. There are also concerns for longer term consequences and soil degradation. So we want to look into all of that. And then moving on to rebuilding and rehabilitation, we're talking about low income families and vulnerable population, people who have been marginalized, still face displacement, have not really had big support from the government. So yes, we need to look at what the material aid and psychological support as well that has been given and should have been given and can maybe be given eventually. Coastal erosion, pretty self-explanatory. You can imagine that the damage has been really bad, and public health concerns and risks about vector-borne, foodborne, and waterborne diseases. Transportation disruptions due to the coastal infrastructure and road and bridge disruptions, and an overall environmental degradation threatens freshwater sources and biodiversity. So, what we're planning for activities for our local labs, we're currently in talks with artists for the first round of local labs. We'll be arranging local workshops with specialists and take a study tour in Evoia with us and the artists, just to speak to the local community and specialists who can help us understand, get a deeper understanding of what's happened, what needs to happen, what areas are still suffering. We have two particular areas in mind, which is Politica and Halkiva, the capital. But yeah, I guess like what we expect from artists as well will also follow that. We want to see where the research takes us, when we want to see what the area brings and what we need to discover more. So maybe we'll expand more outside of those two areas. And we'll continue with roundtables and feedback, just to see works in progress and talk with the artists, see what support they need from us, if they need any guidance, although obviously the rest of the project belongs to them, and we will look forward to seeing how they'll conceptualize that. And of course, we have the final presentations as well. And just a bit more about the focus areas, but which again might go above and beyond that. We look into response and recovery, just in general to see like what the preparation had been, none, and just to kind of see what the emergency response was like, how the community survived, and how infrastructure survived. And social justice and equity, I'm going to look into environmental conservation, degradation, preserving the natural habitats, and the overall rehabilitation of ecosystems, and the community resilience and adaptation, which I think will be a huge focus, because you'll see that if you really read the news and see what's happened in more detail, that the communities and the people were really who helped each other and survived this and tried to adapt without a huge economical support from the government, or yeah, without much effort. So yes, that's what we're looking at to begin with anyway. And yeah, that's all. If you have any questions, of course, you can contact us to find out more. If you'd like to see anything in particular and you have any ideas as well, that's very welcome. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Sophia. Thank you. And our next presenter is from Poland, from the Urban Cultural Institute of Gdansk. And Maja Morawska is going to present the...
Yeah, good morning. For those who don't know me, my name is Maja Morawska, as Liz said, and I'm here on behalf of Urban Culture Institute. I am an art curator. Yeah, of course.
Sorry,
If you
don't want to interrupt you.
help me.
There we are.
Great. Yeah. Okay. What I'm going to do today uh, is I'm going to share with you my personal insights on the topic of climate change. It will not be any sort of analysis or report of hydrological sense or political sense. It will be my insights, as I said, and what I've heard actually in previous presentations from Ivona and from Sophia, I've realized that we've all have the same challenges. We've all faced the same challenges. And this particular context will be the beginning of my presentation. So on the screen, you can see just a few of the current issues and challenges that we face in Gdansk, as well as in many other cities in Poland or Europe as well. These are not all of the problems, nor do I want to suggest that some of them are more important than others, but they certainly do impact the quality of life of Gdansk residents. We do not have, of course, the time to talk about all of them. I will focus just on a few aspects that are especially noticeable in the area of Gdansk. I will start with two examples, actually both belonging to the so-called extreme phenomena, which are considered very significant, risky, and accordingly to various analyses, still unresolved. The first one is flash floods, um, yeah, which is a sudden and very violent river or sea flood caused mainly by strong winds and permanent rise of sea level. The photos shows the flood that occurred in Gdańsk in 2016. I especially like the photo on the right. Uh, on the one hand, because it shows a humorous approach to the problem, and on the other hand, because it proves that we as a residents of Gdańsk have become somewhat accustomed to these kind of situations, and we are trying to normalize the risks that come with it. Such floods occur in Gdańsk almost every year, usually in the summer. Intense and downpouring rains then paralyze the city center. Despite the ongoing development of hydrotechnical system and flood prevention infrastructure, these floods still occur. Personally, I have also experienced at least a few scenarios like these. The most recent one was 3 or 4 years ago, maybe two, I don't remember, when I was driving during a heavy rainstorm, and then I realized that the street I was driving was suddenly flooded, and I had to, quote, rescue myself and drive on a sidewalk or a grass nearby. And what I remember from that experience is that I wasn't even surprised or scared. It was something normal, even. So I think I also normalized the situation. And the second, equally violent and potentially catastrophic problem is the phenomenon of coastal cliff landslides. Most of them are located, the landslides, of course, are located in undeveloped areas covered by forest or shrubs. So they pose less of a threat for people or transportational infrastructure. However, these incidents do happen, as you can see on the photo on the left. Much more serious are consequences of groundwater instability in the historical center of Gdańsk. With its medieval and modern cultural heritage, in the picture you can see a St. Nicholas Church and its cracks in the building structure, which appear periodically in increasingly new locations, both in foundations and on the walls or vaults. What is important, sorry, that the city's dense urban development is affecting groundwater levels and water retention capabilities. Massive apartment towers appearing every few months, built as a part of private initiatives, lead to the disappearance of previously undeveloped green spaces. In many cases, parks and squares built as a part of these investments represent only a small fraction of the total developments. They serve simply a decorative function, completely losing their hydrological and biodiversity values. Uh, Nevertheless, over the past few years, I have observed a significant increase in the number of events, meetings, and projects dedicated to the climate change issues in Gdansk. Local authorities are creating and implementing a series of documents dedicated to these issues, such as Gdansk Water Policy, which is a document concerning the development of seaside areas with respect for nature values and flood protection. These documents are created to complement regional, national, and international guidelines, which indicate the need for bylaws governing the city's green policies. There is also a growing interest among residents, among social initiatives, non-profit organizations, such as neighborhood events, picnics, jointly building a vision of an ecologically and socially responsible community. Urban organizations, including cultural institutions such as Urban Culture Institute in Gdansk, are already making these changes like climate change issues, urban conscious living, and creation of a public space, their day-to-day activities. In the context of artistic practices, a number of events emerging, undertaken both by individual artists and by the institutions like galleries and cultural centers. One of the most dear to me events, because mainly it is related to the visual art, is the annual festival Narrations. Pictured here are images from previous years of festival. The festival is based on carrying out artistic interventions made by artists and curators in a selected part of the city. The artworks implemented in the space are more often referred not to the history of a given place or its cultural heritage, but also to the challenges of a climate changes in Gdansk. Through joint walks explaining artistic concepts, residents, but also tourists, can look at the city in a completely new light and learn about those challenges. I will also mention at least the initiatives that improve biodiversity in the city. Urban meadows are appearing in increasing numbers, even in the strict center. Currently, there are 43 urban floral meadows in the city. And in addition to their visual qualities, they enrich the ecosystem, providing a place for high biodiversity. They provide food or shelter for insects such as bees, butterflies, bumblebees, as well as small mammals, all birds. They also absorb CO2 and urban dust, and above all, actually, by retaining water, they reduce the effect of heavy rains, although they do not eliminate them completely, of course. On the screen, we can see a headline from one of the articles from a local press, I think from 2 or 3 years ago, but it still seems to be relevant. And what, in my opinion, is a crucial and actually summarizes the problem we are all talking about is the willingness to change, to adapt to the new reality, to be socially responsible and resilient. And if you'd ask me why do I believe in this project, Ivona at the beginning showed you a photo with a single raindrop. And when I'm thinking about the project, you may say that our project is only just one drop in the ocean, but that drop can make a wave, can be a part of a wave, part of a tide. And I'm fine with being only that one drop. And to pose a question to you, actually, to create some discussion, I've been wondering about, for the past few days, about something, about the stereotypes that we all in our societies have. In Poland, there was basically a joke, maybe, but somehow rooted in reality. The saying was that the average Pole segregate waste into two categories, for the forest and for burning, which of course is no longer relevant, maybe outside big cities, maybe, not in Gdansk. But I wonder if you also can point out some stereotypes, social stereotypes that are still relevant in your cities. Just a question from me for the discussion later. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Maya. So hold that thought because we're going to hear from our final city partner with challenges, Vienna in Austria. And we do have another partner. We have the Netherlands, but Remy and Marij are from Deer Hunter, and they are undertaking cultural mapping for us in each of the cities in advance of the artists' arrival. As Ivona explained to you earlier, the format and structure of the project is that we have artists traveling internationally and conducting residencies in each of the cities. And we also have local artists. And so Deer Hunter will be traveling with them. So we're ready to hear from Vienna. And it's Bernd Herger from
Hello.
Wiener.
My name is Bernd Herger, as you said. Thank you for being here. We are very proud to be a part of this project. I work for the Wiener Bildungsakademie. It's the political academy of the Social Democratic Party of Vienna. And I'm there for technical things. So during the conference, you will see me in the small room up there.
Hello, everybody. My name is Peter Filipczak. I also work at WBA together with, I might be too close, together with Bernd. And before I started working there, which is the reason why I'm here, I was actually working and studying as an environmental scientist. So that is my academic background. So we will be talking a bit about Seestadt today and groundwater.
So, but before we start, we have some questions for you. Who knows this guy? Napoleon, yeah. What's that? I can't hear you. Glasgow. The translation is a wind direction detector, but the next person, I'm sure you know. Who's that? A British Formula One driver. Who knows him? Yeah, Sterling Moss, yeah. And the next one is quite easy.
Yeah. I've never seen that guy.
And maybe you also know these two persons, Remy and Malise. So what do they all have in common? They all worked somehow. Napoleon Bonaparte maybe not worked. Live or will work in Aspern. Aspern is an area in Vienna, but now the solution, Napoleon lost his first battle in the area, what is now Aspern, on 23rd May 1809. The next one is the wind direction detector of the old airport of Vienna, which was at this area. Sterling Moss won the only Formula One race in Vienna in 1961. So you see in the times there was the airport and the Formula One drive. So the airport was sometimes bigger and smaller. Yeah, I lived there with my daughter and the Easter Bunny. And of course, Remy and Malise are going to work there end of the year. So what is Seestadt Aspern? Seestadt Aspern is the biggest urban development area in Europe. And it's a complete new city designed from scratch. And it's called Seestadt. See is German for lake, because in the middle of the city is a big lake. So here we have some nice pictures. As Vienna is very much fast growing, we need a lot of more flats and apartments. And so the city decided in the beginning of 2000 to make this development area. And in 2007, the concrete planning started. And in 2009, Swedish landscape architect Johannes Tobert was chosen to make the master plan, which you see here on the right. And at the moment, there are about 12,000 people living there. In the end, there should be about 25, 30, depending on if you also count the areas beside. So what are the challenges? Urban heat islands, it's a city. So also the discussion how much greenery you want in a city. And of course, it's a lake, and the lake is, the water in the lake is groundwater. So we have to look at, the biggest problem is, will there be groundwater in maybe 10, 15, 20 or more years? So what is groundwater?
I'm here to talk about, as I said earlier, a bit about the challenges that Seestadt Aspern faces. And because all of the inhabitants rely on the groundwater, and there's a lot of agriculture around Seestadt Aspern as well, who also rely on the agriculture, it is quite important for us as a city to make sure that we use it sustainably and to ensure that future generations have access to it. I wanted to start off, I know most of you will probably still know that from elementary school, the water cycle, but I wanted to start off by talking about it because it is the key component in the whole project, Seestadt Aspern. So we all know water evaporates because of the sun, it condenses, and then through precipitation, through rain, it falls back on the ground. And obviously it's way more complicated than that, but we don't have that much time. However, one process that is not talked about enough is infiltration, where water seeps through the soil and actually fills areas that are vacant due to rock formations or whatever other reasons, and creates big underwater storages. These storages, I mean, most of you have probably heard of groundwater before, but these storages are not closed cycles. So through plants or through springs, there are also natural ways of depletion within the groundwater. So why should we care about that? We use a lot of groundwater, not just in Aspern. This is actually not in Austria, surprisingly. We don't have a desert. But globally, we use it a lot, and we prevent it from replenishing at the same time. So either through just land use, where concrete just prevents water from seeping back in, or through extended drought periods where the ground turns out to be so dry that even when it finally rains, because the ground is already so dense and dry, the water can't actually seep through. So what we thought about, or what the city thought about in Aspern, is a holistic approach on how to make sure that the groundwater levels will always be high. So on the one hand, there are rainwater collection systems that actually go directly into the lake. So we talked about it, actually had a discussion earlier. So usually, we all know that wastewater always doesn't matter if it's from the toilet or from rainfall, it all comes together. Here, there's actually two separate systems so that rainwater can be refunneled back into the lake and back into the system. Another method is by green roofs and green facades, who obviously store water and then release it at a later time. But the main idea was to create a sponge city. A sponge city means that most of the surfaces are somewhat permeable, so water can seep through. So there are no parking lots. It's not very car friendly. A lot of green areas. There are retention ponds. So ponds around the lake are actually being built that are very deep, but not very, but don't have a large surface. So the evaporation is actually minimized. And what I find really interesting is they've actually built sponges. So one of these sponges is a pit between 50 to centimeters deep, and it's full of rocks, which are quite round to make sure that the water isn't blocked. So round rocks with a diameter of around 12 centimeters in pits that are around half a meter deep, and there's dozens and hundreds of them scattered around Seestadt Aspern. And right next to them is where you plant trees, because the water seeps through, and the trees, the roots go through through the spaces in the rocks and can actually directly get the water from these sponges. And so runoff and water loss is actually minimized. And so far, we've seen great successes, and we do expect that even when the city will continue to grow, and maybe even the agriculture around the city will continue to grow, we definitely expect to manage an increase in water use and also maintain the recreational activities around the lake and all the greenery. Obviously, groundwater is a very important aspect, but this also increases biodiversity. It also increases cooling because there's less concrete. And the reason why we chose this area, first of all, there's not a lot of bodies of water in a landlocked country, but the reason why we chose it is because we know it's not perfect, but we think that it's important to rethink how to create a city, because most of us live in cities, and therefore we think this is the best that Austria could do, and we're here to not only gather ideas how we can maybe do this better, but also to present our ideas and be like, hey, maybe this is something that you want to bring to your countries as well, because a lot of it is actually quite smart. And if you have any ideas on what we could improve as well, we would love to hear them. And I think that's it. Thank you very much. There's no final slide. Thank you very much. And yeah.
Thank you very much indeed. And we're going to, do we need an extra chair? Is that, one chair? Oh, there is one. Okay, so if you want to move up a bit, yeah, great. Great, so it's now time for questions, and thank you so much. Yes, we're going to go back to our screen again. While you're thinking of your questions, I'd like to ask the partners, what do you expect or hope will be the impact of Turning the Tide and these mappings and these visits from international artists and working with your own local artists? What are you hoping will happen from that?
In our case, as we study a design city, we hope we also are in contact with the person who made the master plan, this Swedish landscape architect, and we will invite him also to our final conference. And so the idea is to see the master plan from 2009, and then the actual mapping from Marlies and Remy. And now you can compare what happened, what he thought about it, what will happen, and how is the reality. And so we can compare these two ideas. And yeah, I think this will be, we can learn a lot of this, and then you can change some things for the future, because Seestadt Aspern At the moment, it's about 1/3 is ready, is finished, and 2/3 are coming. So there is a lot of potential in this actual mapping and to reshape the plans.
Thanks very much, Bernd. What about, Ivona, you've got the mic in your hand. What about Stockholm from Ivona?
Okay, so we are working in this very urbanized area, by the way, very close to our office as well. And the artists are actually already there. What is not there is the subject of climate changes and how this area will influence, already is influencing the life of the citizens of the city. The biodiversity, of course, which was mentioned here before, the water around it, the pollution. I'm sure that scientists, researchers, planners, architects were thinking about it, but there is no dialogue, there was no discussion about how the place will look in the future after this big transformation. And this is not just about this place, we are just landing on this place for this time. There are many places like this in our cities, in Stockholm and all the other cities in the world where the transformation, the urbanization, the constructions is an ongoing process. So what we are hoping to do is to gather people around the round table, together with artists, together with all the stakeholders. We can gather, we can manage to gather and speak about the subject of environment, of sustainability. What are we building? By the way, what I didn't say is that the biggest bridge which is now in place between the old city and the south part of the city is transported to Stockholm by the waterway from China. It's a golden bridge. It's a very special way of building bridges, I mean, importing from China. So a subject in itself. Why a bridge from China in the middle of Stockholm? Even if it's golden and very beautiful. So we will speak about all those subjects together with artists, and we hope that the culture sector will be there and the artists will help us to understand and to open the minds of the people around the subject.
Super. Thanks, Ivona. And Maya?
Yeah.
For Gdansk?
Yeah, for Gdansk, actually, Ivona actually said everything I wanted to say. But nevertheless, when I'm thinking about the project, it is multi-layered, you know, and the layer I'm the most interested about is the artistic layer. I don't have any goal set up. I don't want to tell the artist what they should or should not do. But the idea is to, as I said before, to normalize the topic, not to think that it isn't important and relevant today, but it is a topic, it is a issue that we have to adapt to, that we have to observe every day and learn how to function within those issues. That's my goal.
Super, thanks. And so, oh, yes.
Maybe if I can just add on to what Bernd said about Vienna, I think, because we were a bit short on the artistic part. Someone earlier said that art is needed where there is silence. I think that was you, and I couldn't agree more. I think the art is needed because we have thousands of studies saying climate change is real. We all know it, and we don't, I mean, I don't want to discredit anyone, but I don't think we need the 10,001st study. What we need is actually a change in society, and what better medium for that than art? Thank you.
Right. Absolutely, thank you. Sophia.
Yes,
agree
very much with everything that's been said. Yeah, I think for us, first of all, we want to bring the community to the forefront and just make these people feel seen and make everybody else sort of understand their struggle and what they've been through and what they're still going through. And like from that point on, create discussion around the matters of sustainability and social responsibility, whatever these people and what is everybody else actually doing to help and to not let the situation get any worse, because natural disasters will keep happening. Climate change is very much real. And I think people need to, yeah, get their head more around the personal and collective responsibility and what they're actually doing to help. So I think it would be nice to use art, and yeah, create something that's hopefully going to have a long lasting impact.
Great. Thank you, Sophia. And yes, from our own point of view here in Glasgow, those of you who have been following the project will know that in Glasgow, our case study is Govan, and specifically around the graving docks there, a very historic site and contested space. And although we're not able to be full partners, we have had some local funding through Creative Scotland, which allows us to continue to work with local artists and activists there and explore the role of artists further. We're also going to link with Dumfries, where we'll be visiting tomorrow. So Glasgow is very much in the project too. I just had to throw that into the mix. Okay, so it's open to the floor very quickly for the last 5 minutes of this session. We have any questions?
What about mine? About the stereotype? What about my previous question? Do anyone to share
Oh,
the
yes,
stereotypes?
You gave
yeah.
a question. Can you remind us what that was?
Yeah, of course. I've mentioned the stereotype of an average pole that segregate waste into two categories, for the burning and for the forest, which is no longer relevant, of course. But I do wonder if in your cities, in your countries, you still can observe those kind of socially connected stereotypes, basically.
Yeah, probably. Does anybody want to respond to that? Yeah, we have a willing participant.
Sorry, I've failed to be online. One of the most common things that I hear is, we can't cycle here because it rains. That would be ours.
Anybody else?
May I have a comment?
Yeah.
I was listening to my colleagues. We haven't seen each other's presentations before, so this was also new show for all of us. We know the challenges, but we didn't know how they will be approached here, and also it's a process. So it was a very advanced way of presenting the challenges this time. It will advance even more, I guess. But I would like to point out that well, we are working in so very different contexts. How many of you are working with culture on everyday basis? Half of the audience, and other sectors like, I don't know, municipalities. Yeah, some culture, climate questions, sustainability, some. What is very interesting here in this conversation, and also people gathered here in the audience, that we are really crossing borders. We are not only within our own comfort zone, which is mostly either culture or sustainability, or working within municipalities or architecture or urban planning, but now we are really trying to step outside of those zones. And this is a very interesting and a very effective way of reaching our goals, or at least trying to reach our goals, to make the conversations in different contexts than we are used to. We are precisely done with the project at Intercult, SOS for Climate for Waterfronts. We were working with, for 5 years, with architects from 6 European cities, traveling around and making alternative master plans for contested areas which are by waterfronts and, well, contested by the climate changes. So, and this was also, and Leah mentioned that she's trying to speak with a loud voice, louder than architects, so they listen. It's not easy for culture sector, for us coming from culture, to speak to the architects, to urban planners, explain that we also know something. So the artists are really needed here for showing that there are other methodologies of working with those questions that the methodologies which we know about up till now. So that's why we are here.
Thanks, Ivona. Thank you. And that concludes this session. Thank you to all our partners. And yeah, we are going straight on to the next one. Yes, and the next one. Our next session is called Reflections on Water. So much of what we are exploring through the project Turning the Tide is, and because we're all part of the River Cities Network, we're cities on rivers, but so much of it is about water and water quality. And we know that Vienna is very, very proud of its water. Many of us have probably tasted Wiener Wasser, and it is, I can vouch for it. We were in Vienna before Christmas. It's delicious. The water is gorgeous. We are also very proud of our water here in Scotland. We take great pride in the water that comes from our taps. It's delicious, it's clear, it's clean, and it's pure. And reflecting on all of that and why that is the case, and why in some parts of the world, looking just across the border to our nearest neighbours in England, there are very big issues and problems with the water supply. So we wanted to try and tease that out this morning. So we've invited Astrid Rompolt from Wiener Wasser, and she's also a representative in Vienna City Parliament. Are you there, Astrid? Can you come up? And she's going to share with us a bit of the, oh wow, gosh, I wish I could do that. She's going to share with us some of the secrets of Wiener Wasser. Astrid.
Thank you for the introduction. I'm working for the Vienna water supply since 28 years, but I want to give you just a short overview, not all of the 28 years. So the start of the modern Vienna water supply was in 1873 with the inauguration of the first spring water main, and it was opened with opening a big, wonderful fountain, the Hochstrahlbrunnen, in the city of Vienna. So when you come to the city, I want to invite you to see this Hochstrahlbrunnen. Of course, Emperor Francis Joseph opened the first Vienna spring water main. We have about 130 aqueducts, and as you can see here, there were many workers on the site, but there were also, what you maybe don't see, female workers. I like to point that out because when I started to work for the Vienna water supply, the first 10 years, they were always talking about Arbeiter, the male word, but I found on the pictures that there were also Arbeiterinnen, female workers. They are carrying the water on their heads. Maybe you see it, and I think it was really hard work for them to do, but that was normal then. So how do the city of Vienna get its water? The water mainly comes from the Alpine springs, from mountains, four mountains, Rax, Schneeberg, Schneealpe, and Hochschwab, over two big spring water mains. We have about 70 catchments, and as you know, it's 150 years old. Last year we had our 150th anniversary of the first Vienna spring water main. So we have to maintain these two long water mains quite often, twice in spring and twice in autumn. And this time, when one of these is out of order, we also use groundwater to supply the city with good drinking water. So this is how it looks like in our catchment areas. It's just nature. And of course, the snow is most important for us because the snow goes very, very slowly into the mountain. And actually, the mountain itself is the filter for the water. So we have very good water quality because there is nothing else, no industry, no companies, producing companies. So water is really very pure. So I just wanted to show you some slides, how it looks like. This is the Kläfferquelle, and inside of the Kläfferquelle, there's only water inside, nothing else, of course, and it flows just by gravity through aqueducts and through tunnels to the city. There's also a hiking path along the first Vienna spring water main because we like people to stay in the valley and go not up on the mountains. Of course, it's allowed to go hiking in the mountains also, but for the water quality, it's better that people stay in the valley. So this is the city of Vienna. You can see the boxes. These are the water reservoirs. We have 31 water reservoirs, and we can store a capacity of about, for 4 days, so it's a capacity of 1.6 million cubic meter of water. We also have some electric power plants which are maintained by the water, by the drinking water, and quite new, we have also a photovoltaic plant on the top of the water reservoir. This is one of my colleagues, and behind him you can see the turbine of the water, of the electric power plant. So we have about exactly 16 water power plants which use the power of the water to produce electric energy. Just another pictures. And what is for most people interesting, how much does the water cost? The drinking water costs 2.14 euro per cubic meter, and the sewage water again 2.35 euros per cubic meter, including taxes. So what maybe is new for you, our water supply is 150 years old, and since 2001 we have made the Vienna Water Charter, which means that water supply is protected legally by constitutional provision in the Water Supply Act. So if the Vienna City Council would ever decide to sell any part of the water supply, any facilities, any grounds, then they need to have a 2/3 majority to make this decision. Actually, the Social Democratic Party, which is now in the city council, never would sell anything. But we see in other water supplies in other countries that the councils decide to sell the water supply because they think they can earn a lot of money. But in reality, the company and some few people will earn a lot of money, and usually the water supply is going worse, and it's going to be more expensive for the inhabitants of the city to pay. So we decided to put this protection of the constitutional provision on the water supply. And I don't know if any other capital in Europe did this, but I think it was quite a good idea. We have 1,500 drinking fountains in the city, and especially on hot days, it's really good for the people. For people who have dogs, even there is a small basin on the floor, so they also can drink. And we have special cooling measures, like you can see here. There is sprinkling device, and you can also drink there. We invented these fountains for the football championship in 2008. They are 3 meters high, so if there are many, many people around, you can find it easily. This was the idea. And this was also an in-house development, the hydrant attachment made of stainless steel with 34 water nozzles. We have 100 of them in the city, and between April and October, we use them to cool. Actually, it's not really good to cool the city, but it's good to cool the people. They have to go there, and then they just feel better, because not everyone has air condition at home. Actually, it's the opposite. Very few people in Vienna have an air condition or have a balcony or a garden where they can cool themselves. And so this is what the city provides to help the people. Last year we had a campaign because of this 150 years anniversary, and the title was Climate Protection, also Klimaschutz im Hahn umdrehen. Hahn umdrehen, it's climate action with a flick of the wrist would be the translation. So if you turn the tap, you protect the climate. Why? Because the water can't just break gravity to the city. And so we have another project. We teach pupils just to drink water from the tap and not drink bottled water in one-way bottles like we had in the break, because so they can save, actually they can save even money, they can protect the environment, because there are no trucks coming from the Alps. There is just the water flowing through the pipelines, and the pupils, the smaller pupils get this water bottle. Actually, it's a plastic bottle, but you can use it very, very long, actually years. And from the fifth grade, they even get glass bottles. And so we reached about 120,000 pupils in the meantime, and about 50,000. Yes, I think we give about 50,000 of these bottles every year to pupils in the city of Vienna. And this is a very sustainable impact on the mindset of the kids and also of their parents. Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Come and join me on the. Thank you so much for that. That's fascinating. I love the idea of the school pupils and what you're doing there. Does anybody have any questions for Astrid before we go on to hear about our very own Scottish water? I think we're beginning to see some of the secrets, perhaps. And can I call on Gary Cake, please, from Scottish Water, to see if we've got any more secrets to share and lessons to learn from our own Scottish water. Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. And probably start off an apology. I only came in at 11 o'clock this morning just for this for this slot, and the 6 speakers that I've heard so far this morning, it's amazing. Commonality, same challenges, etc. that we're facing within Scottish Water as well, and to have that platform to share and actually learn from each other is fantastic. So great that you guys are doing this. Just wish you came a wee bit early as well. Liz is part of this. So I'm Gary Craig. I'm the head of water treatment for Scottish Water, and I've been asked just to come in and give a bit of reflection on the journey of Glasgow's water supply. It's something in various guises I've been involved in for probably too long now, but 30 odd years, early 90s, I started working in Glasgow, and I'm still there yet trying to get out. So in terms of presentation, hopefully it brings to life a wee bit where we came from and why we've came from that direction as well. So I'll take you briefly back to the 12th century, just in the foundation of Glasgow itself, and the photographs illustrate themselves as well. So by the early 1900s, there was about 84,000 people in Glasgow, and at that time, they mainly took their water from the River Clyde itself. And the only cleansing effect on the Clyde was from the tributaries feeding into the Clyde, and it was more on the south side rather than the north side that carried out that cleansing effect. There were a lot of wells dotted across the city, both public and private, and amongst probably the earliest recorded, you can see photographs up there, is 1433 with St Ninian's Well, and that's actually in an area called the Trongate now. For those who don't know Glasgow, it's probably about 1.5 kilometres just to the southeast. Oh yeah, excellent, excellent. So that was one of the first recorded wells. And you can see on the photographs in 1636, piped water was briefly introduced, and that's an old wooden pipe. That's still up at our Loch Katrine Visitor Centre. If anybody can take the opportunity, I urge you to go up there. And for the front row, there is a lovely cycling path, but I can guarantee you it rains up there as well. And that's why I tell my kids that your skin's waterproof for a reason. So that's up at Loch Katrine. We believe that was a very small and short-lived scheme as well. And I'll introduce you to William Harley, whose photograph is in the bottom middle there. 1804, significant year for this particular entrepreneur. William actually came up with the idea of barrelling water and selling it off the back of horses and carts. And it was estimated he made about £4,000 a year from that enterprise, which you can imagine today's money is anything from 60 to 80 million pound a year. So you can see why he's so happy. As part of this, but he did leave his mark in Glasgow. He's actually kitted out 4 small swimming baths, and that area is now Bath Street. So that was from William Harley, and Bath Street is still there to this day. So a look across the city's buildings did provide evidence that there was great wealth, and it was still being generated as the 19th century gave way to the 20th century. However, many industries at that time, the growth was starting to falter, and that was partly due to a lack of fresh and sustainable water supply. And at that time as well, the rest of the city's housing, they were regarded as some of the worst conditions in Europe. They were overcrowded, they were vulnerable to epidemics. Cholera, for instance, in 1832 and 1848, came in lethal waves, killing absolutely thousands across the city. And typhus, typhoid, etc., that struck with depressing regularity. So this faltering growth and disease was inspiration for a clean, fresh water supply, and Loch Katrine was the choice of that supply. A couple of photographs of the Katrine Aqueduct, the first one. So the appointed engineer was John Frederick Bateman, and in 1854 the first bill went to Parliament to start this piece of work, and there was a couple of objections at that time. There was a Professor Penny, and indeed the Admiralty itself put in an objection. The Admiralty was more so about the sustainability of the water towards the east and the Forth Valley, the River Forth, etc., which Katrine naturally flows towards. And Professor Penny, who was proved right at the time, was more about the lead and more about the metals content within the water, which is why we have the treatment processes in place just now to handle those. However, the objections were thus met, and in 1855 the bill was reintroduced and it was passed on the 2nd of July 1859. 1855. So the first aqueduct was opened in 1859 after 3 years of construction, and it was opened by our then Queen, who was Queen Victoria. And in 1896, second aqueduct was opened after 11 years construction. And the reason the 3 years to 11 years was just the construction methodology. The second aqueduct was more tunnelling than the kind of cut and cover that we experienced with the first aqueduct. So Loch Katrine itself comes from a Gaelic term. Gaelic name is Catherine, and that actually means Highland robber. Now, what I don't know, and I've no researched this, and I will, is whether that Highland robber that was named after the Central Belt started stealing the water from the lower Highlands. So still to confirm that one. But the original works you can see in the bottom right of your screen there, that was designed to supply 50 million gallons, which is about 230 million litres a day. And that was to meet the city's growths and also allow Glasgow to continue to grow and continue to flourish. And that throughput is actually higher than the current Mulgai works that feeds the greater part of Glasgow. Aqueducts themselves, they come from what is known as the Royal Cottage in the bottom left area of your screen, and it was very basic treatment. It was true large straining wells. There was a bit of pH correction as well. It was disinfected with chlorine gas before going out to supply. So there was no filtration to speak of, and we were susceptible to bugs such as cryptosporidium, etc. I'm going to take you back to the opening day just briefly, because this was a quote that came from the Prince Consort on the day, and that's obviously a diagram of the Queen opening Katrin, and you can see the walkway. So there's a canopy covering the walkway, and the Queen was actually sailed across Katrin in a steamer called the Rob Roy steamer by two gentlemen, Peter McGregor and John MacDonald. As the Queen was making her way down underneath this canopy, the soldiers were called to attention, and as they came to attention, obviously forgetting they had bayonets in the end of their rifles, the bayonets pierced the canopy, and the Queen and the royal party get soaked, which is no surprising because Catherine gets between 80 and 100 inches of rain a day. But as the Queen gets soaked, she made her way up to the Commissioner's cottage, and she was only in there for about 15 or 20 minutes. And from that day on, that is now known as the Royal Cottage. I've always referred to it as such, and it's on the maps as the Royal Cottage. So it's 15, 20 minutes, now it's the Royal Cottage. And anybody that's ever flown out of Prestwick Airport, that's kind of akin to the Elvis Bar in Prestwick Airport, where I think it was within about 300 yards out for about 5 minutes. And we'll get the Elvis Bar down at Prestwick Airport. So this is moving into the current time. You see Mulgai treatment works in the top left. That was commissioned in 2007, and that supplies around 310,000 properties with a great taste in water. It's a direct filtration site. It's got 12 large rapid gravity filters. And through the lifetime, various opportunities have been taken in using the hydraulics. You can see in the top right of the screen there, that's Glen Finless, where we'll get turbine generation. But also moving forward and capturing some of the opportunities with the landmass we've got, as well as anything else. In the bottom left is our Balmore treatment works, which does supply the east side, skirts the east side of the city, but predominantly towards Edinburgh, Grangemouth, etc. That's our largest PV scheme, only opened probably about 6 months ago, and there's 8,500 PV panels. And that supplies about 19% of the power that Balmore requires to operate. And that is our largest treatment works in Scottish water. That saves around 1,100 tonnes of carbon every year. And what we're looking at just at the moment is some of that turbine, capturing some of that hydraulics, the turbines, etc. Balmore's got the equivalent of about 365 million litres a day, and we're in the process of just putting turbine generation on the inlet for those works, just to try and capture some more of that power that's available to us. So whilst Katrin was increased to meet the future demands of the city, the dam was actually raised by about 5 metres as part of the original piece of work. The infrastructure was also getting built to match. And there's 10 large trunk mains that run through Glasgow, locally known as the C and the M mains. And the C stood for Craigmadie, which is one of the reservoirs in Mulgai, and M is Mugduck, which is the other reservoir in Mulgai. These are 48-inch mains going down to 36. And the interconnectivity and the foresight that was seen as part of that design keeps the people enjoying that fresh taste, beautiful water that's supplied from Katrin in a day-to-day process. And that's just an example of what can happen when it goes wrong. So this was up at Auchenhowie a couple of years ago, and this particular main was put just under 250,000 people at risk. There was major flooding, as you can see, major road damage as well, and we estimated that we lost about 36 million litres of water at that time. So it wasn't just about getting people back into supply, it was understanding where the chlorinated water was going, dechlorinating the water courses, etc. It was a massive effort, but the people were put back into water within a couple of hours due to the foresight and interconnectivity that we've got and the infrastructure that supplies Glasgow. And it's a pleasure. I find myself quite lucky that I've got that kind of flexibility, to keep people in supply as well. And some of the feedback you can see, just patch over this one, but you can see in terms of the commentary we receive, from that Auchenhowie, people actually make mention, probably can't read it there, but they make mention of the Katrin Aqueduct, etc. And it's something that's repetitively, fed back into us about the infrastructure, about the Victorian build, etc. And it is something that people like Glasgow are immensely proud of, and it's something that actually makes my heart beat every morning when I come in and I've got this system to operate as well. What does the future look like for Katrin? So you can see Katrin up in the north, Loch Lomond as well, slightly south of that, and I've tabled Braddon Reservoir down in South Ayrshire as well. So it started off as Katrin, supplying that formation of Glasgow and the properties that were there with the foresight to be able to allow Glasgow to flourish, allow it to allowed to build and allowed to extend toward the south side and beyond. What we can see now and what we can do now is interconnectivity actually allows Catherine to supply over 100,000 people down into North and East Ayrshire as well. And we've also got a supplementary flow from Loch Lomond that can feed into the aqueducts as well. And then you can see the carrying capacity down below, with the aqueducts, 570 million litres a day, and the subsequent treatment works that can feed from it as well. So again, something that we're expanding, and we've got that connectivity, not just to supply Glasgow as a city, but down into Greater Glasgow, Dunbartonshire, down into North Lanarkshire, etc., and down into North and East Ayrshire as well. And I'm going to leave you, I'm going to go back just to a quote from John Bateman as well. This is what he said when he built the Catherine Aqueduct, and I think it captures just the mood and the romance of the overall system as well. So John Frederick Bateman said, "I'll leave you with a work which I believe with very slight attention will remain perfect for ages, which for the greater part of it is as indestructible as the hills through which it was carried. A truly Roman work, not executed like the colossal monuments of the East, by forced labour at the command of an arbitrary sovereign, but by free will and contribution of a highly civilised and enlightened city, and by the free labour of a free country." And I think that passionate statement just embodies the people of Glasgow and what they believe about their water supply. And I'll leave you a beautiful picture of Loch Catherine. Thanks.
Oh, beautiful, thank you. Thank you so much, Gary. Could you come and join us here? Thanks so much for that, Gary. So, what common lessons can we learn and share with each other? We can hear the pride from both Vienna and Glasgow, and you both talked about the people of those cities having great pride in their water. And I'm not hearing that from the people of London, for example. Just wondering if there are any lessons that we could learn.
So for me, I personally, on a personal note, I don't think I do enough of, I've spoken to Astrid last week, but again, it's what I said earlier on about the speakers, the commonality and the opportunities are limitless, and probably don't do enough of some of that information sharing. The one thing I will note is we do, when Astrid spoke about our modern day wells, if you like, we've got a similar top up from the tap. It's all over Scotland, all over Glasgow as well. But I am insanely jealous of the deluge showers that you've installed as well. However, I'm not sure with the weather patterns, that we've got in Glasgow, whether that's a true requirement or not. It does get sunny, but as I say, seriously, the learning opportunities are limitless for me and my colleagues in Scottish Water.
I think also about sharing the pride with the world, because I don't necessarily think that people do know of the pride. I certainly didn't realise the pride of the people of Vienna and their water until I was there. I don't know, do you think people share the pride in our water? I'm not sure.
It's one for me, Liz, and I'll probably put it out to when I'm in other countries, and I'll put England in that, across Europe as well. And we get talking about what you do, and when you mention, you work for Scottish Water, immediately talks about can't wait to go home, can't wait to get a shower, the water's beautiful, love the taste of it, can't use it anywhere else, etc. So in the main, I would suggest, certainly when you look at the people of Glasgow and the feedback we get, the use of what the Victorians actually built for us, is something that comes through quite regularly as part of that conversation. So it's certainly something that I feel, and as a customer as well, it's something I feel, and as a manager who has to operate and maintain such a system as well, the pride that I've got in this asset and what it provides is fantastic.
Yeah, great. And you're close to it. I'm just wondering if the wider world shares that pride. Astrid, what were you thinking? You're nodding.
I wanted to tell you, I really appreciate that when we have been to some restaurants in the last 2 days, that you get a glass of water and some ice on it. And I think this is an attitude of good hosting people. I really appreciate that. Actually, in Vienna, you get a water from the tap, and either if you ask for it or if you order some coffee, then you get the water, but not automatically when you come to the restaurant. And I think this is the step which is missing in my city. Maybe this, because it's such a symbol of hospitality to welcome people. And of course, it's also a sign of being proud on the good water. Actually, and what I didn't mention is that we also have a strategy for the future, because climate change will also be a challenge for the Vienna water supply. And we have a study, a 200 pages strong study about how to deal with it. And just to see the principles, we want to extend the capacity of the water reservoirs. We want to build and develop our water pipe net in the city, because we have, as you heard, the Seestadt, for example, we have many regions in the city which are growing because we are getting more and more inhabitants. And we want to strengthen and get more out of our resources we have, which means that we will also, in the future, will have more groundwater, a bigger part of groundwater in our water supply, which is very, very important for us because it's in the city, whereas the spring water is wide, about 150 kilometers, not
Distant.
Thank you for the word, distance from the city, and this is not so easy in some times.
Great, thanks. So I think we have time for a couple of questions. We've got somebody in the very center of the hall, in the middle row. Neil, you'll need to speak into the microphone because the people who are listening online won't be able to hear. I'm so glad you're here to bring some context too.
Well, the context I want to bring in
Have
is
you
something...
got the microphone?
I do.
Good.
It's something that understandably Gary could not mention for political reasons, but Astrid did, because she's a politician as well as being involved with water. Scottish water is Scottish water and Scotland's water because there was a fight against a Tory government which wanted to nationalise Scotland's water a number of decades ago.
How surprising.
Wanted to privatise, sorry. And instead, the Labour Party fought them off. Strathclyde Regional Council did a magnificent job of a plebiscite, very unusual for a local authority to go to all the people of the region and ask them if they wanted to keep their water, and we got to keep our water. And that's the strength of Scotland's water, and that's why England is now an open sewer, and Scotland still has glorious, clean, sparkling water and seas that we can actually bathe in if we're daft enough. So thank you to those who managed to avert that privatisation, because the problem with England is that it's privately owned for private profit, and that's not a good plan for water, which should be a commodity that is available to all for free. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And on that note, at risk of preventing you from reaching your lunch, I'm going to announce the lunch break now, and the lunch is available downstairs.
It is. I'm just going to say one thing. By the way, I'm Graham Jeffrey from UWS. I'll be doing a bit more this afternoon. The QR code has been held ransom by the private company that we use to generate the QR code. It's no longer working, and I'm not willing to pay the like £300 ransom that they're demanding to release it. So in the spirit of public ownership, I'll put, we've had to go back to being analog. So there are now copies of the program for the rest of the day on the front desk, printed on paper. We were trying to be sustainable or whatever and not do that. So just to let you know that. Thank you to everyone from this morning, and we will be back very sharply at 1:30. And please go and enjoy your lunch downstairs.
Thanks, Graham.
And that's because I did it with a free QR service. And